I recently had an opportunity to do some academic work related to compassion. I got to read and write about the subject for a year or so, and today I brought my notes here to make sure that I deliver all my learnings to you. This video will be a bit simplified. I'm going to talk about things in a nutshell. Please understand that this video does not explain the whole humanity, but looks at us humans through the lens of compassion. As a neuropsychologist, I oftentimes discuss complex phenomena with my clients. Today I want to explore compassion with you. Compassion is something that is fundamental to our humanity, yet oftentimes a bit misunderstood or simplified. We need to learn where compassion stems from and what it is all about, both of us individuals, but also to our humanity and societies as a whole. In a very nutshell, compassion is about being aware of someone's suffering, being emotionally affected by it, and being motivated to help. Therefore, compassion is more than just empathy, because it has that action component in there, the motivational component of being motivated to help. It's not only about recognizing other people's feelings. A good piece of research breaks compassion down into 5 components. The first component is recognition of suffering, noticing when someone is in pain or distress. This may seem quite obvious, but it requires genuine attention to others. When you start to think about it, I think we all have experienced those situations where our own suffering has not been recognized, or we ourselves have not been able to recognize how much a close one of ours has been suffering. The second component is understanding that universal and subjective nature of suffering. Recognizing that experiencing hardship just is part of being a human. It is something that we all share, and it's subjective. The third component involves feeling sympathy for those who are suffering, being emotionally moved by others' pain. And this third component leads to the fourth, that is tolerating that distress that comes with witnessing suffering, not just turning away because it makes us uncomfortable. Nurses and doctors are usually quite good at this, and they have to be, because it's their job to track and treat whatever pain their patient has. It's just not possible for them to look away when they see other people suffering. And finally, there is that motivational part, motivation to act to alleviate suffering. Therefore, compassion is more than just a feeling or perception. It's more about doing something. To repeat myself, compassion means being aware of someone's suffering, being emotionally or cognitively affected by it, and feeling motivated to help. Compassion can be directed not only towards others, but also towards ourselves. Self-compassion refers to extending that same understanding of suffering and kindness inward when we are suffering. Though related, research suggests that compassion for others and self-compassion may be somewhat distinct cognitive processes for us humans. But nevertheless, the concept of self-compassion has proven itself very valuable in intervention design, and I would argue that both of the concepts are important for us all to understand. Compassion isn't just a modern invention or nice cultural thing. It is something that is really wired deep into our biology and has been crucial to our survival as a species. As Professor Paul Gilbert explains in his extensive work, compassion is closely tied to the evolution of caring behavior and altruism. Charles Darwin is oftentimes mischaracterized as promoting only ruthless competition between individuals and species. While Darwin made and makes good points regarding survival and nature, he already hundreds of years ago recognized those communities with the greatest number of highly sympathetic members would flourish best and rear the most offspring. In other words, Charles Darwin recognized that groups that cared for each other survived and thrived. Many researchers argue that compassion has developed alongside our extensive periods of childhood dependency. Human infants require years of care, creating pressure for caregiving instincts. Researchers argue that these same neural and hormonal systems that evolved for parent-child bonding expanded a long time ago to facilitate broader social connections. To summarize, Compassion isn't just a nice quality to have as a human being. It's part of our evolutionary heritage as social beings. When we feel compassion, specific brain networks activate. fMRI studies show increased activity in brain regions that are associated with caretaking behavior, and those are linked to positive emotions, reward processing, and caregiving motivation. This alone is naturally not that big of a deal, as anything we think or do should have a neural correlate of some sort. That is the function of our brain. But what makes this quite interesting is that practicing compassion has been shown to be able to change brain structure over time. I think it needs to be recognized that practicing compassion has neural correlates. Basically, our brains adapts to the way we are using them. On a physiological level, compassion has been associated with increased heart rate variability. That is a marker of greater parasympathetic nervous system activity, which in a nutshell supports being calm and connected. I'm pointing this out because it's important to understand that in this way compassion is different than empathic distress, which in turn activates stress responses. I'm simplifying things a lot here, but when we witness suffering in other people or ourselves, we can respond in two broadly different ways. Either with empathic distress, where we become overwhelmed by others' pain, potentially, eventually, leading to maladaptive behavior such as avoidance, or with compassion, where we aim to remain emotionally regulated while also being motivated to help. And this distinction is quite crucial. Compassion doesn't drain our human batteries the way empathic distress does. Instead, it can be sustainable and energizing. There are some studies that demonstrate that compassion training increases altruistic behavior while simultaneously improving emotional regulation. The point I'm trying to deliver here is that rather than being depleted by caring, a truly compassionate attitude can actually build resilience. And there is some quite reputable science backing all this up. Compassion is not only brain chemistry, but evidently has real impact in real people's lives. Research indicates that compassionate people tend to experience greater general well-being, more positive emotions, and better social relationships. Studies also show that compassion is negatively associated with depression, social anxiety, and burnout. What I think is fascinating is that compassion also appears to function as a buffer against stress. Self-compassion seems to be a very powerful concept for mental health. A meta-analysis found that self-compassion interventions had small to medium effects on reducing depressive symptoms, anxiety, and perceived stress. Interestingly, recent research suggests that self-compassion works not primarily by generating positive emotions, but by reducing negative stress reactivity. Self-compassion, in other words, helps us to regain emotional balance in stressful situations by dampening our negative responses rather than just explicitly fostering positive emotions. Perhaps most encouragingly, compassion is not just something we all have or don't have. It is a trait we can actively practice and be better at over time. A vast amount of research evidence connects compassion training and interventions to increases in well-being and decreases in various facets of mental illness. This means that we all can actively cultivate this capacity throughout our lives, and while we get better at it, we should also see the benefits in our daily life. Behaviorally, compassion seems to foster altruistic behavior. Studies have indicated that cultivating compassion leads to increases in prosocial tendencies such as generosity and helping behavior. This translates to real-world benefits in communities where compassionate values are prioritized. To scope things in a bit, in healthcare setting, a compassionate attitude to patient care is associated with better patient outcomes. In educational environments, compassionate approaches to learning improve learning. In workplaces, compassionate leadership builds trust and reduces burnout. It's not that far-fetched to say that compassion can function as a form of a social glue, something that binds us together in relationships and communities built on mutual care and support. Social structures can either nurture or inhibit our compassionate tendencies. Environments that emphasize competition and individualism may make it harder to act compassionately. while those that emphasize cooperation and interdependence may facilitate it. Cultural differences also appear in how compassion is expressed and valued. Self-compassion, for example, has shown stronger associations with life satisfaction in more individualistic societies. That is interesting. Both individual and collectivistic cultures seem to have their own strengths and caveats when it comes to cultivating compassion, and discussing them is way beyond the scope of this video. But I want to point out that the culture you are living in has effect on how compassion is cultivated. While compassion appears to have innate biological foundations, it's also a skill that can be trained and developed. Various interventions have been designed specifically to increase compassion and self-compassion. There are a lot of practices you can look up, such as compassion meditation, loving kindness meditation, compassionate mind training, and numerous self-compassion programs. Studies have shown that even brief compassion training can increase helping behavior, enhance emotional regulation, and improve social connection. Self-compassion interventions have shown to reduce self-criticism, anxiety, and depression while increasing resilience and life satisfaction. What's interesting is that self-compassion seems to be more challenging than compassion for others. This might be because even though people may intellectually understand self-compassion, they could still struggle to feel, embody compassion towards themselves emotionally, particularly if they experience high self-criticism. This disconnect between cognitive understanding and emotional experience is something many of us can probably relate to. Even without guided or formal training, small daily practices can nurture a compassionate attitude. These might include taking a moment to recognize someone else's suffering, reflecting on our shared humanity, speaking to yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend, performing small acts of kindness regularly, and practicing active listening. As we've explored here, compassion is a lot more than a sentimental feeling or a high moral feature. It's a fundamental aspect of our humanity with deep evolutionary roots, measurable effects on our brains and bodies, and profound implications for our individual and collective well-being. In a world that can sometimes feel increasingly divided, polarized, attention-focused, and stressed, the science of compassion offers a hopeful path forward. By understanding and cultivating this capacity, both towards others but also towards ourselves, we can build more resilient individuals, stronger relationships, and healthier communities. The value proposition of compassion is obviously huge, but if you're interested, I think you should definitely read books authored by Professor Paul Gilbert. I think it also needs to be pointed out that this video has been very compassion focused, and we did not attach compassion to any motivational, behavior, or developmental theory. For the sake of this video, I tried to make things a bit simple and understandable, and tried to look at us humans through the lens of compassion. I hope this video has given you an appreciation for compassion and perhaps even inspired you to nurture this quality in your own life. If you found this video helpful, please consider sharing it with someone who would benefit from this too. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the science of compassion. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.